Welcome to the debate. We are diving deep today into a really remarkable hybrid offering in the world of tabletop role-playing games. The conversion of a foundational AD&D module, T1, The Village of Hamlet, the original entry point to the Greyhawk setting, now being run by GM Gregory using the very complex rule set of Pathfinder First Edition on a modern virtual tabletop, or VTT.
This convergence of TTRPG history and, well, cutting-edge presentation creates a fascinating tension, certainly.
Absolutely. And that tension forces us to ask the central question: what is the defining feature and, the greatest value of this experience? Is it the profound sense of TTRPG history and nostalgia we get from returning to the original Greyhawk setting and module, acknowledging this as a direct connection to the hobby's origins? That is the position I'm championing today.
And I believe the true value lies not in that historical text itself, which is, let's be honest, it's sparse and often ambiguous. Rather, it's in the superior, hyper-detailed, and technically sophisticated execution. The appeal is the state-of-the-art presentation, made possible by system mastery and the technological capabilities of the modern VTT. This is about maximizing fidelity, not romanticizing the past.
The thing is, the core attraction is framed by the GM himself as a kind of historical pilgrimage. I mean, he explicitly labels the offering as Return to the Past, positioning it as playing the very first AD&D adventure module. This game is selling a flavor and atmosphere that really originates in 1979, the excitement of being, quote, poorly mounted, badly equipped, entering Hamlet to take those first legendary steps. The restrictions placed on character creation, limiting players only to races and classes that conform to the original AD&D Greyhawk setting, are, for me, proof that historical authenticity is the priority here.
I agree the module is historically critical, but the execution transforms it. The GM is not selling a historical document. He is selling, and I'm quoting here, the highest quality tabletop gaming experience as possible. This is a level 21 game master, as he's called, who is explicitly pushing virtual tabletop systems to the limits of their capabilities. I mean, if the value was solely historical, you would run it using the original rules light system and sparse maps.
But that historical context dictates the entire narrative framework.
The context is the wrapper. The mechanics and presentation are the substance. We are talking about detail the original adventure could never touch. High-res, full-color isometric maps for every location, replacing simplistic grid layouts. Furthermore, the selection of Pathfinder First Edition, famously one of the crunchiest systems, is key. It allows for the precise, complex calculations of complete rules as written, or raw. This system requires VTT functionality, like automated stacking math, buffs, and condition tracking, simply to function smoothly. This is modern high-fidelity simulation.
That's a compelling argument regarding efficiency, I'll grant you. But let's interrogate the rule set choice a bit more deeply. Your position implies the mechanical complexity of PF1E is the primary draw. However, if intense mechanical depth with a sole goal, why anchor the game to a converted adventure from the 1970s? There are countless original PF1E modules designed from the ground up to maximize that specific crunch.
Well, I come at it from a different perspective. PF1E is chosen precisely because it allows the GM to realize the classic challenge in a structured, detailed, and non-arbitrary way. The crunchiness of PF1E, meaning the massive volume of feats, rules, skill prerequisites, and complex combat maneuvers, it allows for intense, tactical combat that adheres strictly to raw. We see evidence of this focus on cover and grapple flowcharts and rigorous interpretation of intricate skills like stealth and disable device. The modern rule set provides the engine capable of realizing that classic sense of danger, but with modern, predictable rules architecture.
But that level of mechanical detail is secondary to the foundational setting and narrative. I have to return to the restrictions, the limitation of classes and races to the AD&D Greyhawk standard. Proves the primary focus is on maintaining the historical spirit of the Greyhawk campaign setting. The Pathfinder conversion is merely the necessary tool to access that historical world with modern functionality. If the GM were truly maximizing PF1E complexity, He wouldn't place artificial limitations on character builds that enhance mechanical options.
See, I think those limitations don't preserve the spirit of AD&D. They enforce aesthetic nostalgia. Meanwhile, the need for automated tracking systems points directly toward mechanical fidelity. AD&D was notoriously rules ambiguous, often relying on GM fiat. PF1E, meticulously executed on a VTT, promises a true simulation where the rules are strictly interpreted and calculable, which is what serious tactical players prioritize over vintage flavor. The greatest value is the promise of complete and fair raw adherence across a huge mechanical footprint.
That takes us neatly into the discussion of immersion. You suggest that high fidelity replaces ambiguity with vivid detail. But traditionally, the immersion in classic modules relied heavily on the theater of the mind. The player's imagination filled in the sparse text and maps.
Was, often a limitation of the technology of the time. Modern presentation enables a deeper, more immediate immersion because it eliminates the cognitive overhead of mental calculation and visualization. The GM provides high-res, HD, finely detailed scale maps with dynamic lighting, replacing imagination with vivid, accessible detail. You're not forced to simply sketch out the interior of the Temple of Elemental Evil. You're presented with a detailed scale model.
I have to challenge that idea that ambiguity is a limitation. Ambiguity demands player agency. When the module text describes Hamlet as a village of a couple hundred souls, the player's mind creates the details, making their choices feel deeply personal to their version of the world. The GM even emphasizes that your choices will write the fun story, focusing on the pure excitement of wilderness exploration and dungeon crawling. That generative imagination is the essence of the old-school appeal that this offering seeks to capture.
But the fidelity here actively enhances the sense of place and presence. Consider the GM's commitment to providing a unique portrayal of hundreds of NPCs. He utilizes his training as a stage and film actor to ensure that all 222 inhabitants of the village of Hamlet are recognizable through unique voice impressions. This level of professional performance and detailed simulation, bringing every single citizen to life, is a profound form of immersion that goes far beyond simply reading a description of the dusty cart track. It makes the world immediate, tangible, and responsive.
That's compelling, but I'm a little concerned that a frictionless, hyper-detailed experience fundamentally changes the nature of exploration. If the VTT handles the entire scale model, dynamic lighting, and precise geometry, does the game risk becoming a detailed tactical puzzle rather than a narrative fantasy where risk and ambiguity drive fear?
Old school play relied on the risk inherent in uncertain visualization. By eliminating the mechanical upkeep, the slow tracking, the constant referencing of tables, you eliminate the inherent friction that enforced caution and resourcefulness in classic play. The elimination of mechanical friction is a feature, not a bug. It means players focus only on the moment and their character actions, allowing the narrative choices to be instant and impactful rather than getting bogged down in math. The fidelity of the VTT, with automated character sheets and persistent information in the turn counter, ensures efficiency. It's an optimized portal to the fantasy. We're really just arguing about whether the value lies in inefficient historical flavor or an optimized modern experience.
Let's shift the focus to the GM's expertise then, which underpins both our positions. You highlight Gregory's technical adaptation as his primary value.
Exactly. While 45 years of experience starting in 1979 is impressive, his true expertise is his adaptation. He constantly masters new game versions and virtual tabletop systems, staying worlds ahead. The true achievement is the promise to bring the whole world to the table using the most advanced VTT tools. For instance, running battles with dozens of combatants without lag, something absolutely impossible in the paper format of 1979. His expertise is defined by his continuous modernization and ability to execute large-scale, complex simulations.
I acknowledge the necessity of mastering modern tools, but that mastery only serves the underlying old-school ethos. The dedication to authentic, rigorous adjudication is rooted in those decades of experience in the early days of the hobby. He ensures fair play by strictly interpreting classic rules philosophies, like the commitment to specific rules overriding general rules principles that many contemporary GMs often ignore or overrule by fiat.
This dedication to structural integrity, guaranteed by his decades of legacy, is what ensures the old-school classic dungeon crawl feel. The expertise is in the preservation of that structural integrity, not just the technical flourish.
But the sheer complexity of PF1E rules makes rigorous structural integrity dependent on the VTT. To achieve fair play with complete RAWS, in a system with that many modifiers and conditions requires automation. I mean, if the GM were to attempt strict non-fiat adjudication of Pathfinder 1E without the VTT support, the game would grind to a halt. Therefore, the decades of experience are secondary to the technical competence required to translate that experience into a playable modern format. The value is not in the legacy itself, but in the expert adaptation of that legacy using the best available tools.
For me, the value is in the narrative foundation itself, the original adventure hook, the atmosphere of the Greyhawk setting, and the unique historical flavor of the classic module. The GM acts as a skilled archivist and curator, using modern tools to make the historical text accessible and functional for a new generation. Without the iconic roots, the mechanical detail is just complex number crunching.
And I'd argue the lasting quality lies in the fact that the GM recognizes the limitations of that original foundation and utilizes cutting-edge VTT technology, superior system complexity, and professional performance skills to create a hyper-detailed, efficient, and ultimately better playing experience. He doesn't just reference the past, he builds a state-of-the-art simulation that exceeds the original experience in every measure of detail and functional fidelity, from the isometric maps to the voice impressions of all 222 villagers.
Ultimately, this offering demonstrates that a powerful tension exists between reverence for the past and the mastery of modern execution.
Indeed. And whether the greatest value lies in the module's iconic roots and historical flavor, or its unparalleled modern execution and mechanical fidelity, both elements clearly create a unique and highly desirable gaming experience.